Welcome. You are watching another In Front of the Chalkboard, a video series on the Culver City Unified School District and our great schools and ideas and energies and efforts to improve these great schools. My name is Scott McVarish. I am your host. I am a co-founder of the United Parents of Culver City, and I have a daughter at El Marino Language School. With me today is Laura Chardiet. Laura is a school board member of 3 years. She's the former PTA president for the entire school district and was an early supporter of United Parents of Culver City. She has 2 kids, one of whom is still in the district and one who has matriculated through the distrist. Welcome, Laura.
Thank you.
All right, let's just jump right into it, Laura.
All right.
Our first question is the facilities. We had a bond passed about 1.5 years ago. You were a major proponent of that bond. You worked incredibly hard to get it passed. You spoke everywhere in the community about it. What's going on with it?
Well, obviously the campaign was successful.
It was.
And so now we have over $100 million that we want to spend to improve our facilities. And so we're in the process of prioritizing what we believe should happen first, second, third, what our priorities are.
What are your priorities?
What are my priorities?
$100 million. Here you are. How are you going to spend it?
Okay, that's a good question. That's the question I like to have asked.
Better than cutting $100 million from the budget.
Yes, definitely. Well, my priorities is for us to finish what we've already started. So we're in the process of completing all the projects for the fields, the athletic fields. And the second thing we're moving forward is the frost, completion of the frost.
So that's the auditorium for the performing arts?
Yes, it is. And we're very excited about what's happening so far. The plans have been submitted to the DSA, so we're waiting for them to be approved so that we can move forward. And it's going to really benefit a lot of students and create a space that the city will be proud of. And then third, my priorities are to invest in what's going to benefit our instructional learning for the students, so we can move from having science labs from the 1950s to current day.
Okay. So is that, I know we have a science lab at El Rincon.
Right.
Are you specifically referring to the El Rincon Science Lab? I'm sure we have them at the secondary schools as well. Tell us a little bit about how you see that money being invested.
Well, the problem is our science labs at the middle school and the high school are very old, very antiquated, and there are plumbing problems, so it's hard to even do basic science lab experiments. And if you just see pictures of schools with state-of-the-art science lab and compare them to ours, it's kind of embarrassing. So I think those are the most visual changes that you would see as far as improving the instructional delivery that our facilities provide.
Okay. And will that be enhanced by the new curriculum changes that we're undergoing with the new science standards, with the new federal dictates to have a different delivery of the education?
Yeah, I think it could only be enhanced. I think, we should be incorporating technology into those classrooms. I mean, not just the science labs, but into other classrooms as well. I mean, we have to move forward.
All right. So I don't know if that's going to get us to $100 million. If there is money left over after we've done that, what is the process that you advocate for and how we decide how that money is allocated? The needs assessment came out to a lot more than $100 million. So we're going to have to say no to certain projects, yes to others. How do we make those decisions?
Well, I think we're committed to making these decisions based on relevant data and not on emotion. So we're trying to be very methodical about collecting necessary data to inform our decisions.
Okay, so what does that mean? Like, give us an example of what might be funded that could be a bit of a surprise for people, or what might be cut that might disappoint some people, get the emotions roiling over.
Well, I think it just depends on who you are and what your belief system is, right? So, for example, I know that at El Marino there's an issue with the air quality, and so there's a commitment, because that's a health and safety issue, to improve the air quality at El Marino. Because the question that we're having now is, if it's 80 degrees in the classroom with the doors closed and it's 80 degrees outside, do we want to then make a commitment to having air conditioning in the classrooms at El Marino, when other schools in the districts would also have classrooms that are 80 degrees? So we kind of have to figure out how big a priority is that, and what are ways for us to make the learning environment in the classroom comfortable so that students can work. And then we'd also have to look at how many days in the year is it 80 degrees? Is it 90 degrees? Is that important to us to have air conditioning provided at all of the schools?
I see. So let's take a school near and dear to your heart, La Bayona. Mm-hmm. Your kids went through that school for many years. Mm-hmm. What do you see as being a priority for La Bayona?
Well, if we were looking at air conditioning, we would look at some of the schools that have a second story, because the second story classrooms tend to be hotter than the first floor. And then you have classrooms that are shaded by trees that aren't as hot as other classrooms. So I think when I'm talking about using relevant data, I think that's what we're looking at. We're looking at trying to not have a cookie cutter approach, but really be very careful with our investments, because we want that money to go as far as it possibly can go to benefit everybody.
Right. Well, kudos to whoever planted the trees next to the classrooms. Maybe we'll see more trees next to every single classroom.
Yes, let's plant some trees.
Right? All right.
Yeah.
So let's talk about something that's very successful in Culver City schools. It's the arts program. At the high school, we have the AVPA. Excuse me, is that what it's called?
AVPA.
Audiovisual Performing Arts.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. I've seen many of their productions. At the middle school, they just had the Wizard of Oz produced, mm-hmm. which was produced by kids, directed by kids, mm-hmm. written by kids, mm-hmm. which is phenomenal, mm-hmm. And then obviously performed by the kids. So tell us a little bit about why do you see that as being such a great strength in Culver City, and how might we build upon that in the future?
Well, first of all, Sony Picture Studios is an incredibly generous partner, which allows us to have such a thriving arts program here in Culver City. And not only do we have the AVPA, but we have the Front and Center Theater Arts Collaborative, which is in conjunction with Sony Pictures. And you have the Feinschreiber Foundation that has been very supportive of the arts. So I think part of the reason that we've been able to maintain such a great arts program is because we have generous donors who are helping us to maintain an arts program, and we have people who are dedicated to making that a priority. And at the height of the recession, the school board still maintained funding for our arts program. So we're committed to it. I think it's because we see just how beneficial it is, and we're very committed to having our kids have options. And all the things that arts education brings, it's more than just arts education. Yeah.
Do you see the arts as being, particularly in a community like Culver City, as a viable career track for many students, or are you looking at it as expanding their mind, expanding the intelligences that they have as kids, or both?
Definitely. I think it's both. I think we have a lot of opportunities that we can take advantage of because of where we are located here in Culver City for apprenticeship programs moving forward. I know West LA has a great technical theater program, and then they have an apprenticeship program with the unions.
Oh, interesting.
So that students can matriculate through those programs. But I think more than that, being involved in the arts, like just for example, with my own daughter, when she was at La Bayona, she was in the program with the Actors Gang, and she was having trouble reading, and so her self-esteem was very low. And she was in the program, and she played a parrot where she sat on an adult actor's shoulder, and she got to mimic him. And just that experience of being on stage and being, well received, just did so much for her self-esteem. And I don't think we can overestimate that power.
Interesting.
And just, the other thing too, I tend to focus on the performing arts just because that's where my passion lies. But with the visual arts, with music, with everything that we have, you know, you want to speak to a child and speak to their passion, but they're not going to know it's their passion until somebody introduces it to them. So that's why we really have to continue doing that.
So I think it's true and accepted as truth that kids learn by seeing what their parents do. You are the creator and director and producer of the wonderful Honorary Service Awards, a musical extravaganza every year. And it's not just a music, it's this integrated play, and it's sarcastic and it's funny and it can be skits. What about opening that to kids? Letting kids see the amazing artists that we have as parents. I would advocate for that, and I'm wondering, is that something you think would be appropriate? Because while our kids are very interested in the arts, they don't really have that much of a chance to see their parents. Many of them are incredibly talented to perform.
Right. Well, you know, because of the nature of the show, it tends to be a little irreverent. So I'd be nervous about having kids of a certain age come to see that. And, you know, parents in the PTA spend so much time focused on doing things for the kids that it's kind of a night for us to poke fun at ourselves and be irreverent. So that said, at our last event, which we had at the Senior Center, some of the parents did have their kids come, but they were high schoolers. Right. And we had the AVPA jazz band there too.
That's right. You had high school band performers.
Yeah, and I think it was eye-opening for them to see a different side to the people who were volunteering.
Absolutely. Whoever manages the Kirk Douglas Theater, I hope next year you invite the HSA into it. That would give us more room to invite the kids, and definitely the performance is worthy of that type of stage.
Thank you.
All right, you mentioned internships for kids at a West LA high school.
West
LA College, excuse me. That brings up a really good point that we should have discussed during the facilities, which is project labor agreements. For those of you who don't know, project labor agreements are an opportunity for construction work typically done by bond expenditures to be done with the highest quality labor possible. The highest quality labor possible, at least in my opinion, is that which comes from the unions. For all my friends out there who are not big union fans, let me explain why I believe that to be particularly true in the trades. Union shops tend to have a much greater longevity for their workers. And when the unions negotiate contracts, they negotiate a high level of training, mentorship, and other types of education for those members. So those members, those workers, tend to be much more highly skilled than a typical construction company who's going to have a lot greater turnover and might be working with immigrants who might have work permits one year, other years they may not be able to. So there's quite a big turnover in the construction and trades industry, generally speaking. Project labor agreements get around that. They can also require a district to hire from the local community. Upwards to 40% of the employees might be from the local communities. And most important to me is the fact that they can create internships at the high school where kids who are not interested in college, perhaps at least this time in their life, can learn a trade, oftentimes a very lucrative trade, and do so because of the project labor agreements. You are a big proponent of the project labor agreements. Are we going to have a project labor agreement that's going to cover the $100 million of expenditures that the bond is affording our district?
Well, this is what I am definitely advocating for. And my primary reason for wanting to have that, besides that I believe this is what's best for our society, our city as a whole, is that there are value-added benefits to having a project labor agreement, which would benefit our students and the families of our students here in Culver City. So, for example, if we negotiated a project labor agreement, then we could have in that agreement that our students in Culver City have priority into those apprenticeship programs. And that would be an amazing benefit to have, because the apprenticeship programs offered by the IBEW, for example, is it's like the Harvard of the electricians apprenticeship program.
It's the advanced placement for kids who are not going to college.
Exactly. And you know, when students finish that program, they're going to leave making $80,000 a year, and you know, contributing to our society, benefiting our labor force, our economy. And I mean, the other value is that you can say we're going to hire from the Culver City area, so
Right.
the parents would have priority being hired on those jobs. So I'm very in favor.
Right. That would help with our employment here in Culver City.
Right.
All right. Well, we'll be very interested to see how that turns out. And I would imagine the decision is going to come sometime in June, May, July of 2015.
Well, project labor agreements can take a while to negotiate. So I would hope that I would like to direct our superintendent to begin negotiating the project labor agreement by June.
Okay. Well, we talked a little bit about the community. We have something now in our city called the Culver City Compact.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm not mistaken, you're the one who brought that in to the city and to our district. Why don't you tell us what is the Culver City Compact?
So the Culver City Compact is basically a formalized agreement between us and all of our partners with specific goals of benefiting our children. So for example, that 100% will graduate from high school. 100% will have pathways to career education programs. So we already have awesome partnerships with our city and with our with community-based organizations, with the surrounding universities, parent groups, with our union partners. We have awesome relationships. So it was just a way to formalize that agreement and to be able to work more efficiently together. Because I think what happens is there are things that are happening between the school district and Loyola Marymount, for example, and our other partners don't realize what's happening, and they can either help benefit that, or we can benefit Upward Bound House, for example. We can, if we work together more collaboratively, we can leverage our resources. So it's just a formalized agreement that our superintendent likes to call a declaration of our interdependence.
Nice. So how do you tell us how you see that going forward? What are the possibilities for a Culver City Compact?
Well, since it's kind of a brand new concept that we're trying to get our arms around. We've met maybe 3 times to discuss mapping out what the resources are. That's like the first step, is mapping out what is already in place, and then where are the gaps and how are we going to fill those gaps. But I think, we're trying to put together a structural framework of how that is going to work moving forward. I think one of the things that would benefit us is if we had dedicated staff, because if you have somebody whose job it is, those things tend to happen
right
faster.
So almost be like say in my company, it would be a development director, someone who's putting the deals together. That would be a very interesting thing. I imagine the bond money can't be spent for that?
No, it
All
can't
right.
be spent for that. But we're looking at other ways to fund that.
All right, that's exciting. All right, I think we're at the time of our program for our top 3. So why don't you tell us what you think are the top 3 areas of focus that you'd like to see the district have for the next few years?
Okay, so obviously number 1 is improving our facilities and spending the bond money.
Right.
That's the number 1.
That's right.
Priority.
The taxpayers have voted on it. They don't want the money in the bank. They want the money spent.
Right. Yes, and we want it to benefit
agreed.
the students as soon as possible. Yeah, so that's the number 1 priority.
Okay.
Number 2 priority for me personally is to keep moving forward so that we provide apprenticeship and career pathway programs for our high school students. I think, we put a lot of attention on getting our students into college, and I believe that's the right thing to do because, what they're forecasting is it's no longer enough, and probably hasn't been enough for students just to have a high school diploma. Now you need to have at least a high school diploma and 2 years of college. But along with that push to get students into college, I don't want it to feel like going into the trades is less of a choice, and it should be valued. So that's my second area of focus.
And if I may, so you're an administrator in the adult education program in LA Unified. So you have a background in understanding just how many kids, in fact, don't go to college and what happens to them if they are not prepared for an alternative to the college track.
Right. And also, you know, if a student's in high school and they're struggling and they're not really into, you know, working with papers and books and stuff, but they are great with their hands.
Right.
That needs to be cultivated, just like we were talking about, you know, getting someone's passion for the arts ignited. And, you know, we have students who that's what speaks to them.
Right.
So we need to, you know, to really value that and show them that there is a way forward.
All right, so that's number two.
Number
3 priority.
Number 3 priority is, this was an area of focus when I first came on the board, and it continues to be something that I'm passionate about. And I believe as a district, we're doing a much better job with this. And that is to have less variability at the school sites regarding technology or arts programs or athletic programs or things that will benefit the students at those schools. Because there are some schools that, you know, don't have the same parent affluence, and they need a little extra support. So I'm really happy to have seen that we're doing more of that. So there's less variability at the school site.
Can you give me an example of how a school might have benefited in, say, the past year of equalizing things?
So for example, with technology. So, you know, some of the schools have been able to raise money to have iPads in the classroom where other schools weren't able to raise that kind of money, so that you would have the Ed Foundation step in and say, okay, this school, they have lots of iPads, they don't need that support from us. Well, this school, they may need the support from us, or with the smart boards, or, you know, the arts education. So at some of the schools, you had fine arts being offered for the students and not at the other schools. So now we have fine arts being offered at all of the elementary schools and more at the middle school.
Right. So we sort of grow as a district together.
Yes.
I mean, I love the idea of having one program that's successful at one school, and then the other schools learning from that program, and then they're getting their own program. Might not be an exact duplication, but nevertheless, they'll have benefited from that first school who perhaps trailblazed.
Yes, definitely. You know, like the Safer Routes to School grant, I know Jim Shanman began that at El Marino, and then that just grew and is now benefiting all of our schools so that they're walking and rolling to school.
That's right.
Yeah.
We call it Rock and Roll Day.
That's right.
I don't think that's the exact name. I think it's Ride and Roll, but we call it Rock and Roll Day in my household.
Yeah, so more of that, and the Growing Great Gardens, same thing. So now all of the schools have a Growing Great Garden. Yeah, there's no reason why everybody should be enjoying all of those great programs.
All right, that's a good place to end. Thank you so much, Laura Chardiet. Appreciate it. My name is Scott McVarish, your host for this program. If you have future guests you would like to see or questions you want asked, please feel free to email me at podcast@unitedparentsculvercity.org. That's podcast@unitedparentsculvercity.org. Again, thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for not calling me Laura Chardonnay.
You're welcome.